I've always thought of my sister Claire as the kind of person who says whatever's on her mind, whether the timing is right or not. Some people find it refreshing, others find it irritating, but me? I've grown used to it. I'm the younger sister, 3 years behind her, so I've spent my life watching her take the lead, set the tone, and speak the truth, or at least her version of it. But nothing in my life prepared me for the day she leaned across her kitchen counter, coffee cup in hand, and casually said, "Jerry gives me everything I need." I laughed at first, because it sounded like one of those throwaway comments people make about someone who's good at fixing things. And Jerry was that guy, our neighbor across the street who everyone seemed to like. He was the man you called when you needed a heavy box moved, or a stubborn bolt loosened, or a second opinion about whether you should patch a roof or replace it. He had that rugged, comfortable presence that made you think, without realizing it, oh, things will be fine now. Jerry's here. But when I looked at Claire, she wasn't smiling in a joking way. She had that small, secret curve to her lips, the one she used when she knew she had your attention and wanted to keep you guessing. "What do you mean?" I asked, setting my mug down. She shrugged, slow and deliberate. "He's just dependable. Helpful. He's there when I need him." I nodded, but the way she said "when I need him" sent a flicker of something I couldn't name through my chest. Maybe curiosity. Maybe suspicion. Jerry had been my neighbor for 6 months, ever since I moved back to town after my breakup with Brian. I didn't want to admit I'd been a little lost, 32 years old, fresh out of a 5-year relationship, no real plan beyond start over. Claire offered me the small apartment above her garage. It wasn't big, but it was enough for me, and being near her gave me some sense of stability. From my front window, I could see Jerry's place directly across the street. At first, he was just the nice guy who waved when I pulled in from work or who brought in my packages when it rained. Then one evening, I came home with a heavy box of books and struggled to make it up the stairs. Before I could set it down, Jerry was there, taking it from my arms as if it weighed nothing. "Books?" he'd asked, looking at the box as we climbed the steps. "Yeah, I'm reorganizing. I own too many." "You must be stronger than you look," he said, smiling in a way that made my stomach tighten, though I told myself it was just because I wasn't used to compliments from strangers anymore. It didn't take long before I started running into him more. Sometimes it was purely accidental, other times I suspected he might be timing things so our paths crossed. We'd talk about little things, gardening, the weather, the best takeout in town. Nothing that meant much, but the way he looked at me when I spoke made me feel like I had his full attention, and that was something I hadn't felt in a long time. After Claire made that comment, I started noticing him more. Or maybe I was just more aware of the small things, how his shirts fit across his shoulders, the easy way he laughed, the faint scent of his cologne when the wind caught it just right. And then there were moments I couldn't ignore, like seeing him leave Claire's house early one morning while she was still in her robe, or spotting them talking in hushed tones near the fence between their yards. I told myself it was none of my business. They were adults, and if something was happening between them, it was their choice. But deep down, I felt a slow burn of jealousy I didn't want to admit to. It wasn't just about Jerry, it was about the idea that someone could have him, that someone could be on the receiving end of that warm smile in a way that meant more than neighborly politeness. The rainy Thursday that changed everything started with my car refusing to start. I'd been planning to run errands, but when I turned the key, all I got was a clicking sound. Frustrated, I tried Claire's phone, but she didn't answer. A few minutes later, there was a knock at my door. Jerry stood there, holding a flashlight. "Claire mentioned your car's been acting up," he said. "Thought I'd take a look." I followed him out into the drizzle, watching as he leaned over the hood. His shirt clung just enough to outline the muscles in his back, and I found myself staring before I could stop. He checked the battery, wiped his hands, and looked up at me. "It's dead. I can give you a jump now or tomorrow morning." "Morning's fine," I said, though part of me didn't want the evening to end. We ended up sitting on my porch as the rain came down around us. He told me about growing up in the area, about the road trips he'd take if he ever got the time. I found myself laughing at his stories, forgetting how gray the day had started. At one point, there was a pause. His eyes held mine for just a second longer than necessary. The kind of look that made your chest feel too tight. Then he cleared his throat and stood. "You know," he said, "if you ever need anything, anything at all, you can call me." I thought about that for days. The tone of his voice, the slight drop in pitch, the softness in his eyes. I started to think maybe Claire's words, "Jerry gives me everything I need," weren't about her at all. Maybe they were just true in general. Weeks went by, and the tension between us grew in ways I couldn't quite name. His hand would brush mine when he handed me something. His smile would linger just a little too long. Once, he fixed a cabinet door in my kitchen and his fingers grazed my wrist, sending a shiver through me. The night it finally shifted, I was cooking dinner when he knocked. He stood there with a bottle of wine, looking like he'd just made a last-minute decision he wasn't entirely sure about. "Thought you might want some company," he said. We ate, we laughed, we drank. The air between us felt heavier with every passing minute. At one point, he reached across the table and took my hand. I didn't pull away. And in that quiet, unspoken moment, I understood what Claire had meant, not because I thought she still had something going on with him, but because I finally knew how easy it was to let Jerry in. How easy it was to let him fill spaces you didn't even realize had been empty. The thing about Jerry was that he didn't just give you what you asked for. He gave you what you didn't know you needed, and once you felt that, you couldn't quite go back to who you were before.